All right, let's try it again. Hello and welcome to first day of the live hacking event with HackerOne. I have four amazing guests with me. They each play a different part when it comes down to doing live hacking events at HackerOne and Verizon Media. But before we jump into the fun, I'm going to switch my screen, bring them on, and let them introduce themselves. And then we're going to talk about hacking, live hacking, and how all this happens when we organize them. So hello and welcome. Let's go ahead and start with introduction. Who you are, what do you do, and where do you work? Chris, if you don't mind kicking us off. What about you, Luke?
I'll take myself off mute first. Hello, world. So I do all things community at HackerOne. You do work on live events and put up with Ben and all of his shenanigans day in and day out. And Jess and Prash, very humbled to be here. Thankful for all of you guys watching online and hacking on HackerOne. We're coming up on 100 million in bounties pretty soon. So I'm very excited for all of you to maybe who's going to be the first one to get the $100 million check. Well, not check, but put us over the limit. Great to be here. Thanks, Ben.
What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I'm on the community team at HackerOne. I am in charge of the live hacking event program. So really excited for our first virtual event to run it with the awesome Verizon Media team. And thanks so much, Ben, for having us on.
Prash, what about you?
Thanks, Ben. Hey, everybody. My name is Prash. I work as part of the technical services team here at HackerOne, and I'm based out of our London office. Been with HackerOne for the past couple of years, and I help manage the customer journey. So I work with people like Chris at Verizon Media behind the scenes to keep bug bounty programs running.
It looks like, Chris, there was a little bit of an audio issue on your end. Do you want to give that one more try? Some people didn't really get to hear your introduction, it looks like, from the chat. Let's just give that one more try. Not sure when went wrong, but do you mind giving us one more introduction for you, Chris?
Yeah. So my name's Chris Holt. I run myself and a couple of the folks run the bug bounty program at Verizon Media. We're currently hosted on the HackerOne platform. One of the things that I do in my regular daily life is playing all these live events. H1 2004 being one of the this is the most recent event that we're doing.
Very cool. So let's get started with the live hacking event. How's it going so far? Where are we with live hacking event?
I can start that. We're in the middle of it. This is we kicked things off a week ago with an opening call. Got a bunch of the hackers on a video conference together. Ran through some scope. Talked about some bonuses that were available for grabs. And we gave an intro to some of the exciting extra content that was going to be put on that I'm sure everyone else would love to talk about more. But we've been going through hackers have been submitting reports. Our HackerOne triage and our team has been accepting the reports and starting to mark things at severity levels and prepare bounties and things. So we'll transition into the second phase of the event later today.
You mentioned something about working with triage. How does that work with live hacking events? How do you, with the paranoids, work with our triage team at HackerOne, especially in a virtual environment where you don't have direct access to the hackers? How does that work? Who's your point of contact with HackerOne? What role does HackerOne play when it comes down to working with hackers and working with the triage team?
You got a lot of questions in there.
It's a very loaded question.
Yeah. So at the high level, when a hacker submits a report, it comes into the HackerOne portal. The HackerOne triage team is our first line of response. So they'll look at the reports, do some validation, clean up some of the metadata, maybe rename it, update the severity if it doesn't have a CVSS vector. Add some more detail to what we call a triage report. If there's maybe some missing information in the report or it wasn't a fully realized proof of concept, their job is not to create your bug for you, but they clean things up. So what we get is a much more standardized set of content. Once it comes through them, it hits over to our side of the team. We have a handful of analysts on our side that work on creating bugs, Jira tickets for our developers based on all the content that's in the HackerOne reports. And then, our team and our product security and assurance team will work with the developers to make sure that we get things fixed. And then we walk back down the chain and come back to the hacker on HackerOne and ask for some extra testing. Maybe you might find a bypass for something, or validate that the work we did was extra solid. And then we'll go through a bounty determination at the end. So we work with a variety of triagers on the HackerOne triage team. Prash is our technical program manager, and I don't know how many triagers have we worked with in the past year. I think it's probably everybody.
There's a lot of triagers, and I'll let Prash talk about this a little bit more. I'm curious to understand, Prash, how does it work with you, man? Like, you seem to be the middle person with HackerOne, and in this case, when the customer is Verizon Media, you seem to play a role in the middle, both hackers, triage, and the target, which is Verizon Media for this time. How does that work for you? Like, how do you work with the hackers and everybody involved in the live hacking event?
Absolutely. So Chris summed up the triage process really well, and that's kind of how it works typically in the Verizon Media inbox. But for live hacking events, it's a bit different. And for a virtual live hacking event, it's even more different. Requires a ton more communication, a lot of cross collaboration between both the Verizon Media team and HackerOne. So for those of you that aren't aware, as part of a live hacking event, the first few days of submission after the scope drops is called pre-submissions. And any bugs submitted during this time, if there are any duplicates, the bounty gets split instead of simply being closed as a duplicate. So behind the scenes, whilst hackers are submitting dozens and dozens and dozens of bugs every single day, the HackerOne triage team is not only deduplicating vulnerabilities in Verizon Media's main program, but also the live hacking event inbox itself. And we need to make sure we catch all duplicates of a specific vulnerability, because when we go to pay it out, we need to make sure we're getting each and every one of those hackers. So communication is key, specifically for this virtual live hacking event. It's much easier when we're in person and able to sit down with the hackers, and they can just kind of show us their screen and explain, hey, this is the bug, this is what's going on. So to facilitate that, we've been having twice daily office hours between Verizon Media, HackerOne, and the hackers themselves. We also have daily calls internally with HackerOne triage and Verizon Media triage as well, to make sure we're kind of getting the bugs across, making sure the impact that is kind of aligned between both the HackerOne hacker and the customer themselves. And of course, we have a Slack channel with all of the hackers where we can communicate directly with them and kind of discuss any bugs that might come up. Now, of course, this is a bit different for a non-live hacking event, right? Through the program, when a hacker submits a bug, when you have a program like Verizon Media, there are so many bugs coming in each and every day, and we have people all around the world in so many different time zones looking at this. So it's all about communication, working together, and that's what we're all about here at HackerOne. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with Verizon Media. I mean, it's been 6 years now we've been together, and in that time we've built one of the greatest and the largest bug bounty programs on the internet. And that's been tough. It's been tough, but it's been a hell of a journey.
Speaking of building great bug bounty programs and submissions, how's it going with submissions so far? Anything you want to highlight? Anything exciting you guys want to share about what we have gotten so far?
I think when I checked this morning, we were at over 200. About 35% of those were highs and criticals as of submissions. So we'll pull some additional numbers, I think, as bounties start getting paid later today. The leaderboard goes live this evening, and we're going to start issuing bounties later this evening as well. So we'll start to see it move.
So what are the stats like so far? Do we know if there's been how many submissions? Do we know how many have been crits or highs, dupes? Any stats you guys could share with us?
Yeah, so over 200 submissions so far. A little bit over 35% of those are submitted as highs and crits as it stands. And then we've been doing the Best Bug of the Day Award, which is new for both Verizon Media and HackerOne at live events. So we've issued, I think, 5 so far. Ram Sexy, Mayonnaise, Samix, Ajax Chapman, and Bull have all won them. You can follow along on our Twitter to see who gets tomorrow's.
So, Chris, I see that you guys are posting a lot of cool announcements on Twitter. So, for the viewers who are watching, if you're not following the Paranoids on Twitter, make sure you go and follow them. They're making announcements regularly. You've been announcing hackers. Every day you have announced a new hacker. There's been 5 so far. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ramsexy, Mayonnaise, or Mayonnaise, as I would like to call him, Samex, Ajax, Chapman, and Bull. 5 great hackers. How do you pick them? Is it based on criticality, bounty amount? Is it based on, how do you guys select who is, that hacker for that day?
Yeah, so what we set up for this event was kind of a 24-hour window where we go from event start plus 24 hours and then plus 24 hours. So each day, a 24-hour day, we're looking at reports that come in during that period. And we're just looking for things that stand out. Some of them have been picked based on the impact that they have shown, or that we understand the bug to be, whether that was shown or not. Some of them have been just really creative testing and work that's been done. We had a second choice that lost by 1 or 2 votes on one of the days. That was like a really well-written report and lost out to one that had a really significant impact. So we're just generally looking for high quality content that comes in. Whether and the major buckets for that is the quality of the report, the creativity in the testing or the bug, and the impact. But we're kind of trying to leave it open to see what comes in, and we have a dozen or so people that are looking at pretty much all of the reports every day. So we have a lot of eyes on all the reports that are coming in, and it's a really organic conversation of I think this report was the best. So that goes to this person, and we'll discuss that and maybe come up with different options. But there's been multiple nominations each day.
Very cool. What are the hackers hacking on today? Is the scope different than your current bug bounty program? Is it something that I've never seen? And why this particular target if it is something new?
Yeah, so when we plan these live events, so this is the 8th event that I've planned, 8th or 9th.
There's been a lot of them, I think.
But we've done a bunch of events, and each event we try and cycle through different pieces of our scope. Verizon Media is a huge company. We have tons of brands, even more products behind that. We have B2B products. We have B2C, so business to business and business to consumer products. So at each event, we try to set a different particular set of goals or targets, and bring products that either will move us towards those particular goals, or set goals based on the targets that we have lined up. So many of these events, and this one particularly, this one has been 6 months in the making. We did an event just 6 weeks ago that was 14 months in the making. So there's a lot of time that goes into planning these things, and a lot of that is making sure that the engineering teams are aware of what's going to happen, prepared for the potential onslaught of security bugs that they're going to have to fix, which is likely going to disrupt engineering time that they would have been building features or doing other bug fixes, and now they're focusing on these other things instead. So we have a lot of planning internally that goes into it. This event, we are focusing on some of the products that are in our public scope. I'm not going to spoil them because we don't want to alter the outcome of the event at all. But some of the products in our public scope, as well as a few things that most people can't get access to, special circumstances. And that's one of those things that we look to bring to events is what's that special thing that you can't get somewhere else. We've done in the past where we've granted like premium level access for free, or granted some business level accounts on certain products to open up different sets of features and things. So we're always looking for what can we do, and those kinds of things typically require a lot more planning, so that we're able to get those accounts set up and make sure that people aren't running rampant in our production environments, impacting customers and businesses. So this event, it's been a mix of things, and we've seen a lot of activity in a few certain areas, but it hasn't been as wide as we were expecting it to be.
So to recap, this is pretty much it's a scope that was already included in your public bug bounty program, but there are extra steps you have to take in order to get access to this product in specific, right? From what I understand. So,
yeah.
How did that?
So anybody could get access to the things if they were dedicated enough and spent the energy and followed the path. But we've gone and short circuited that because we wanted to focus on these particular things.
And then what role did that play with invites, both for HackerOne and for Verizon Media? How did that affect the way you guys invited hackers, and did it limit you? Did you how did it work?
So HackerOne has talked about it. You guys have done some blog posts about the general invite structure that goes out for how do hackers get invited to events.
So let's start with that, if you don't mind. If I can switch over to Jess or Luke for a sec, and just generally with hacking events, how do invites work?
Yeah, I can take it. Luke, you can chime in if you want. We traditionally for live events have about a target hacker count of 60. So I wrote a blog post that was released sometime in March that kind of announced how we separate those buckets out. Every event is unique. Every event has a different structure, different skill set requirements, and we work very closely with the customer, in this case Verizon Media, to determine the invites. So we try and pick hackers, a bucket of about 10 hackers out of that 60 that are local to the region. Our original event before this one shifted to virtual was going to be H165 of this year, so in Singapore. So for this event, we have about 30% of our hackers that are participating are in the APAC region. We try and incentivize people who are new to live events, so have done less than 3. We have 10 hackers out of 60 that we fit into that bucket. We do the top 5 hackers from Verizon Media's program or the customers, or customer selected. So sometimes they aren't actually the top bounty earning hackers. It's ones that have been submitting really great reports recently, or extremely really creative, or engage very, very well with the customer team that the customer wants to bring on site. We always do the top 2 hackers for our quarterly leaderboard at the time that have a signal and impact of 519. And then the rest of the bucket is hackers that have consistent, critical reports. They are extremely engaging, well-written. They do a lot for the community. They give back. They do trainings, things like that. Those are all components that we look at holistically. Invites are 100% the hardest part of live hacking events, fully transparent. We could have an event venue back out the day before the event, and it would be less stressful than the invite process. So we put a lot into it, and we make it as fair as we can across the board.
So, and again, I'm sorry if this came up. How many hackers were invited this time?
This time is 50, and that's, again, specific to the additional accesses that Chris had mentioned previously. So we had a cap of 50 for this one.
Yeah, Chris, it took a lot of time to prep those accounts, and that was the largest piece of getting this event set up from our technical side. And there was a lot of talk on when we started announcing things on Twitter a few weeks ago. The reaction we got was, great, it's virtual, invite everybody, right? Because you're not traveling. And as much as we would like to do that, we just can't set up all these accounts for everybody. It would be far too much energy and effort to get all that stuff created and then torn down at the end of the event as well. Just the maintenance on that would be entirely unmanageable. But we have played around with the totally open event structure in the past, and we're looking to do that again in the future. It's an interesting idea, and if there's one thing I think we've proven at the events with HackerOne is we like to challenge assumptions and experiment with things, yeah.
Well, speaking of that, why live hacking events? And I kind of want to hear both from, if Luke, you can also chime in with this since you've been going to most of these events. Why live hacking events? Like, why is it important for both, the platform and the customers to engage and invest time and efforts and to doing all these live hacking events and also doing them virtually now? Luke, if you want to kick us off with,
Sure.
from the platform end.
Yeah, live hacking events are special. Getting together, we kicked these off several years ago, and they got a really cool story with Sumlach and Franz Rosen getting together in a hotel room with a bunch of other hackers.
Let's
in
not
Vegas.
spoil that story. That's coming later this week. We're getting to that story.
Okay. Well,
that's
it's
a story
teaser.
for another time. It's a teaser. If you want to hear the story,
Teaser
if you're
thing.
watching, come back later and you'll hear it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely check back in to Nahamsec on Twitch, coming soon later this week. We can never replace, part of HackerOne's mission from the very beginning is to try and connect security teams with the independent researcher community and hackers. And so when we have a functional capacity through the reports you submit and the engagement interaction, we see so much magic when you get to meet someone face to face, when you get that in-person connection, relationships are developed, and we see collaboration in spades. And so we've had this idea for a while, shifting to the virtual space, to say, how can we replicate some of the magic? You will never, ever replace in-person events. We're never going to try and say a virtual event's going to completely replace the experience you get. Because let's face it, even traveling somewhere is a unique experience. We were talking internally that a year ago about this day, we were in Singapore doing our very first H165 event. And we were supposed to be there this year, but current state of the world made that not possible. So we're like, let's still provide this experience to the value to the paranoids and our customers, the value to our hackers that are able to participate, and let's expand it. So let's take what we naturally do of a community day that fits in 30 people that can come to a room in that physical location we're at, and expand it to the hundreds and thousands that are going to be able to participate in this online streaming that's going on every day leading up to our globally produced closing ceremonies, where we'll get to celebrate some of the work and also talk about some other cool things for the broader community. So live hacking events are special. I've thrown in some chatter already about bringing back Hack the World. We have more virtual hacking experiences, which is what I would call them. Live hacking events, when we say live hacking, it includes live triage, includes special scope, includes like limited engagements, usually some bonuses and bounties, and typically it would include that travel. But in this case, we're doing some additional things for the virtual experience. So when we say live hacking, there's other virtual hacking experiences. Maybe we can do a massive CTF online competition. We can do other Hack the World kind of structures. So more to come there, definitely. Part of taking lemons, that is COVID-19, and turning into amazing lemonade of serving up incredible experiences for all the hundreds of thousands of members in our community. So Love your ideas, throw them in the chat, share them with Ben and others. So thank you.
Chris, how about you guys? I mean, both the aspect of being on site, I'm sure helps, when you have direct access to the hackers, and even doing the virtual live hacking events, having a dedicated Slack instance, direct access to the hacker, and a limited or a dedicated instance at least. How does that help you guys when it comes down to, fixing bugs, identifying bugs, or even finding those bugs?
Yeah, so this Slack is an interesting thing. Having the immediate accessibility of hackers to program and also program to hackers allows us to better communicate about bugs. So that, not everyone is an excellent writer. And even if you are an excellent writer, you might not have an excellent moment when you're writing. And then the report is solidified and the moment's gone, right? The opportunity is lost to improve it. You can always add more comments to it, but there's something lost in that extra action. So having an ability to communicate in real time, and Slack is critical to doing that, opens up the flow of communication and opportunities for that relationship building, so that when something happens, we have someone to go to, you have someone to come talk to, rather than blasting onto the interwebs about, I'm unhappy about this and I don't know what's going on. I can't get a hold of somebody. Right? There's Slack. We have the mediation process in HackerOne. There's email addresses. There's Google Forms. There's lots of ways to get in contact with us. But during the events, all of the regular program things are condensed down to a matter of hours in some cases, rather than being spread out across weeks or months. So there's a lot more pressure that everyone feels to get things done right and get it done fast.
Right.
And no one likes when there's mistakes or getting a report moved from a high to a low. There's always questions like, why did that happen? And being accessible, having that immediate drop in. Hey, can you explain this to me? Yeah, sure, happy to. Yeah.
Prash, how about you, man? Like, I know when we do the live hacking events, you have direct access to the hackers. Does that help you when we do that? Having them on site where you can both from the program management, customer management, and also the hacker part where it comes down to triage and helping them solve issues. How does it work with being on site and then comparing it today where everything is virtual for us with the events?
I remember my first live hacking event. It was a few months after I'd become a triager, and you start to kind of associate handles with certain types of bugs or certain programs, and just kind of being able to put faces and personalities to those usernames that I was triaging every day. That was awesome. Being able to actually meet and get to know the people behind the bugs, behind like cybersecurity, and kind of moving away and just talking about other life stuff. That was really awesome, and I really, really enjoyed that. But kind of shifting back into a hacking and kind of program perspective, like it's invaluable meeting in person and getting that feedback, right? Like you never truly know how someone feels about the process, your interactions with them, how you're doing and how the program's performing, unless you can sit down with them, talk to them, kind of work through any frustrations, talk about any bugs that they might have, or kind of reproduce any vulnerabilities in person together. It just adds a whole nother level of communication that it's really, really difficult to replicate. I think that's why communication is key more than ever with the virtual event. And it's been awesome having the daily check-ins with both the hackers and the program as well. I think that's been hugely important. But it's like Luke was saying, it's really difficult to replicate the magic of meeting in person, collaborating, just overhearing conversations and picking up on bugs. It's quite difficult to replicate that.
So we are on day one of the official kickoff. So the window is closed. Anything that stood out for you guys just comparing the two events, just comparing submissions, the flow, the excitement to a virtual live hacking event? Anything you guys want to highlight? Things that you have done to make the event exciting with the aspect of it being remote? What are some things that you guys have done so far?
So I think it's impossible for us to ignore what's going on in the world today. And I think as part of that, we want to make sure that we're doing our bit and being responsible. And of course, part of that was making this a virtual live hacking event. I'm sure Jessica and Luke can talk a bit more to that. But as part of this live hacking event, we definitely want to make sure we're doing our bit and contributing to everything that's going on. So that's been hugely important to me in ensuring that we're being good, responsible contributors to the world community whilst we're doing this event.
We also, with that, developed a process for the hackers that are involved in the program, if they choose to submit a percentage of their bounties earned at the event and donate them to COVID relief funds as well.
Very cool.
And one of the things that we set as a goal when we were planning this together was zero travel, right? With the reason that we moved this from a physical event, it was originally designed as a physical event to take place in Singapore. And the reason when we moved it into virtual, we were concerned about health and safety, and the reason for doing it virtual was entirely COVID related. So if we end up causing people to travel as a result of this, then we have failed at the virtual side of the event planning. So that was one of the core goals that we set when we were planning this was nobody travels for anything. And we tried to keep that going through with the messaging in that as people are collaborating, even in there's some folks that live in the same town together. We're still encouraging them to not travel to go see each other because that defeats the purpose of the self-isolation.
So what's the end goal with these events? How does it wrap up? Are there awards? How are the awards? Are they different than what we have usually done with the regular live hacking events?
That's a Luke topic. You want to hit the award?
We are definitely doing a wonderful content calendar. So Ben has posted, HackerOne's posted on Twitter, Paranoids have posted. Every single day at 9 a.m. Pacific will be a drumbeat of content for you all to enjoy. And it is going to conclude with a closing ceremony. So one thing that's a bit tougher, we'd love to be able to do this for everybody. Unfortunately, we can't, is the show and tell aspect. So we haven't talked too much about the show and tell, but that is, you ask any participants of an event, people that have come, guests or whoever, you get to see each hacker getting up and presenting their find. It's one of the most enjoyable times. Everybody gets the mic, they get up, kind of talk about the bug they found. with whatever information collaborated and redacted as appropriate in partnership with the HackerOne team and the customer, in this case, obviously the wonderful Paranoids. Unfortunately, we can't globally stream all the show and tell, but we will still be selecting, I think, 10. The Paranoids have kind of taken a leadership position with these live events we do and expanded that show and tell portion and made ways so that more hackers can hear from others. So that's a huge perk and wonderful benefit. With the closing ceremony, we will do a revamped set of awards, which I'll let Jess even tease a bit, because she kind of took the reins and reformatting some of our award ceremony. We'll be doing some fun reflection back on the event so far. Maybe doing some call to action for anybody listening on Twitter. Share your workstation, where you're at. Share some of your quarantine hacking life, whatever programs you're hacking on. We want to see it. We want to be able to kind of include it in a broader scissor reel. We'd love to be able to celebrate as a community. We're all around, but we're not social distancing. We're physical distancing. We can still be social creatures, which is what we're doing right now. But Jess, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give the rundown of what fun awards we're going to get to give out.
Yeah, for sure. So we will still have our most valuable hacker belt. So the NVH for every event is someone who is selected based on criticality, consistency, collaboration, that hacker that kind of just brings that something extra to the table for the event. Our last event at 415, it was the Awesome Doggy G won the award. And we will be giving out physical awards for this the same as we do for in-person. They'll just be shipped at a later date, along with the event swag. We used to have 2 awards that were stat-based. There was the Assassin and the Exalted. So most rep earned and most signal earned during the event. We have done away with those and replaced them with the first and second place winners in bounties earned for the events. We also still have what we call the Exterminator, so it's the best bug of the event. And then we've also added Best Team Collaboration as an award. We started that at 415. As Luke kind of teased, one of the magics of live events is that people get to come together. They work together, they collaborate, they result in much more impactful finds when they work together. So it's something that we wanted to celebrate, especially with the awards. So that's something that will be given for teams of up to 4 for this event. And then another thing that we kind of do for live events that's a little bit extra is we start a Slack channel for random acts of kindness. It's something that we started at 7:02 of last year, and it was actually done by another customer, and it's something that we've adopted going forward because it's such a great practice. Hackers kind of celebrating other hackers who have helped lift each other up during event, whether it's in personal, social aspects or with specifically related to hacking. And so we celebrate those. That might be something cool to encourage too from a global perspective. If you want to start sharing those on Twitter, we can definitely celebrate wins that way.
What about monetary bonuses? Are there any of those happening for any of these events? Chris, are you guys doing anything in particular for show and tellers or any fun bonuses at all?
Yeah, in the past, show and tell has earned a pretty standardized bonus level for presenting to the crowd. At this event, we've broken that up into a 2-phased approach where we're selecting a larger pool of show and tell candidates who will build a presentation and share that with us, and then we select from that pool to put on the stream at the end for the hackers. So to actually do their presentation. So there's part of the award goes if you're selected for the candidacy, and then the other part if you're actually selected for sharing your presentation at the end. We've been doing some small bonuses for each of our daily best bugs. We've got some weekly top hackers that we'll be announcing the first one shortly, probably right after this. So the our, not specifically the MVH of the event, but our top hacker pick for the first week of the event, so from Wednesday to Wednesday today, and then we'll have a second one from today until the end of the event. So there's some money associated with that. Normally at events we would prepare a couple of challenges that go with to line up with the targets that we're setting. So if you can actually go back and look at some of the scope changes that we've made through our public program. over the months and years, and you can probably identify from those which products have been participating in our live events. There's a lot of detail that goes into planning the events, and we roll that into our regular program after the event. So, if you went back and looked at those, you could figure out what people were hacking on. And we like to set these ideas of challenges for each target. And we take the approach of talk to the product team and say, what are you afraid of? What's the worst scenario that you can think of? And if that's a security related thing, then we'll challenge our hackers at the event. If you can achieve this scenario, right, then we have found our worst case. We've found our worst nightmare for this product. So, not only is that a great bug, but here's an additional bonus on top of that. So that's something that we like to do at live events, because not only are we focusing on the product, but we're focusing on particular things that we want to know if it exists, because that helps calm our fears, but it, in the end, ultimately protects our consumers, our customers, our corporate data, which is the entire mission of the paranoids. Is to use that place on the internet for good.
What about this crypto challenge going on? I know one particular hacker who's been driving me and you probably insane with this crypto challenge until he finally got it done. What is that about?
So last year we were doing some swag for an event, and at HackerOne, you guys like to put out challenge coins for events just to commemorate the event, and it's got the logo on it, and it's got the H1 logo on it, and they're nifty things, right? You can't quite see it on camera, but I got a stack of them over there on the bookshelf of all sorts of coins that I've collected from different places. It's something people like to do, but we had this idea that we call it a challenge coin, but there's not really a challenge associated with it in most of the time. So let's put a crypto challenge on it, right? Something that's self-contained, minted onto the coin, that it's commemorative of the event, but it also has a fun little puzzle on it. So we rolled this out at H1213 in, what was that, November last year. We did our first one. That was a simple little puzzle. I think the image is up on our public program if you want to go play with that. We had a separate one, a new puzzle at H1415 about 6 weeks ago. That image is not yet publicly available, but it'll make its way up there later this year. We had another coin for this event. The coin for last event and this event obviously were not minted in time. Right. And this one particularly, we put the event code for Singapore, so people are gonna have to modify that themselves. But there's a crypto challenge on it that when you solve it, it comes out to just a fun little quote. They're just self-contained little things. And for this year, we worked up a series of challenges for all the events that may or may not be related to each other.
So far we talked about the live hacking event, the challenges, bonuses, awards. There's one last thing that we haven't really talked about, and that's the MVH award. And that's the biggest thing, the best, or not the best, of the biggest accomplishment for these events, if you want to put it that way. How is it going to work this way, this time around? How do we select the MVH? Who gets to get involved in that conversation? And how do we select who that winner is?
So the MVH award is done, all the decision makers go into, for in-person events, it's what we call the war room. It's where all of the active triage goes on. It's where all the chaos happens behind the scenes. And so a lot of the key players, so Chris, myself, Prash, Tara, who's the program manager for Horizon Media's team, Luke, Mark, and a few others will get into a room and we'll pick the best hacker for the event as a whole. The hacker who's had the most consistent critical reports, the one who's kind of brought something extra to the event. For this one, we'll replicate the process, but it'll be done virtually.
And I assume it's going to be very hard to pick these winners, right? There's so many great bugs that come in, so many great submissions. How does it work? How do we, when it comes into 3 really good hackers who have, pretty much crossed every box on that checklist, and it's a split. How does it work? I know we have had a few times when it was a very, very close decision. When I know we we sat there in the war room for a very, very long time, especially when the multi-night events happen, right? When there is so many targets, so many good bugs, and last Vegas event we did almost $2 million in bounties, and that it all adds up. How does it work? When we have someone like with Prash's involvement with all this, with seeing the reports and working with triage and with the hackers, what at the end of the day, how do we select who is the top winner?
I mean, it's not all about the best bug. It's not all about who submitted the most bugs or the most critical bugs. Of course, that plays a part, but it's also about so many other things: your collaboration, your contributions to the community. We could kind of factor all of this in. It's not a single objective decision. We don't have one objective measure that we can use to say, okay, this person is the MVH. It's objective. It's a lot of discussion between the Verizon Media team, the HackerOne team. There's a lot going on there, and of course, it's a big deal, right? A lot of people want to win this, so we take it very seriously. We have a lot of discussions back and forth. There's a lot of people involved, but it's not easy, and we do spend a lot of time on it. But again, like I'll reiterate, it's not just about the best bugs. It's about kind of your contributions to the community, to the live hacking event, your collaboration, how you've been helping people out in Slack, things like that. We take all of that into account when awarding an MVH.
Has there been a 2 times winner yet?
Yes.
Can we mention who that is?
There was already, Stoke said, does Franz have a shell? And the answer is always yes. Franz Rosen is the only 2-time winner ever. He won at H1702 2017 and H1514 in Montreal in 2018, I believe. And you asked like how we choose the MVH, just even to add on, criticality, consistency, and community are the 3 primary buckets that I kind of positioned to help kind of frame some of that contribution. So Ben, you are an MVH in the book because you're driving the Nahomies every day, doing these streams. Your community is up to scale, but you haven't submitted a crit in a while, so you might not get the overall MVH.
I got to step this up.
So you gotta rib this guy, help him to step up his game. He's still crushing, but. Criticality, consistency, and community and this is what I shared a video before. A year ago, literally in Singapore, Stoke and I were having breakfast, and he's like, how do we get invited to events? Let's share it with the community. So that's how we kind of looked at it. The collaboration element as a subset of community, writing great reports, being very professional, working with, mentoring others. We do these hacker and training programs for many of our live events, which Jess could dive into more of that program. And obviously, dropping the crits, bringing the big bugs, the cosmic, collaborating with other hackers is a really powerful element to do that. And then consistency and doing the needful, all the things.
And what about you guys, Chris? How does that work out for you guys when you come to the table with some of the decisions you guys have made internally about who should be an MVH?
It's a lot of the same things that Luke and Prash and Jess are all saying that. But at the end of it, or I guess when we start that conversation, everyone already has in their head who are their top 2 people, and most people have a pick when they come to that table, come to that conversation. So it's an open debate about I'm going to put forth this person, and here's why I'm going to support that decision. And we do have an open discussion about it, and some people change their mind. That frequently happens. And at the end of the whole conversation, right, we've hit all of those talking points of criticality, community, and consistency. And then, we'll take a vote. And if it's clear after the first round, after 5 minutes of discussion, then there's nothing to debate, right? We're ready to move on to the next award. But, there have been times when we discussed that for quite a long time and inevitably we need to make a decision. So that'll come down to a couple of the key players. So whether that's program lead and event lead, will if we're in agreement at the too high level, then that probably would take precedent. But whenever we get to that kind of situation, it's open to the community that during the award ceremony, I think Luke has mostly been the MC at them, but he's been pretty open about it. It was a tough decision, and here's the things that we talk about, and here's why this person won for these few particular reasons. But it's it's different at every event.
And Chris, we even collaborated in H1, 2, and 2 in New York, 2018. We did a MVT, most valuable team event. The only time we've ever done 4 belts. And I believe it was Johnny, Smeagol's, Techno Geek, and Stilk Frederick were the winners there. But yeah, that was the only time we've ever done an MVT.
Very cool. Well, before we wrap this up, I wanted to kind of ask a question from everybody on this stream. Let's say I'm a new hacker, both new to HackerOne and Verizon Media's program. Where do I go? I want to, these live hacking events are very exciting. It's very fun to be a part of. It looks very fun from the outside. What do I do? I want to get invited. What are, if we could go down the list and everyone could give me one thing that they would want to see from the new hackers who are participating in order to get selected, what would your advice be for them? I'm kicking out with you, Chris, if you don't mind, since you are the.
So for events, there's only a few spots typically that we have kind of open selection for, based around the criteria that Jess and Luke have already talked about. So a lot of the time we pick those based on who we think will bring something special to the event. So sometimes that's, their particular skill set in relation to what we think is going to be most valuable at the event. Maybe someone has a really deep knowledge of the products that we're bringing to the event and they didn't get put into one of the other buckets. So we'll pull that person in. Someone who has been really participating in our program, just hands over feet, time and time again, long period of time, the consistency aspect, but maybe they haven't earned it from the criticality side of things. So we might throw that person into the mix. There's a lot of different qualitative things that could earn you a spot, one of those last few invites, when we have to limit things. So the simplest thing I would say is, if you want to be at an event, participate in the program that's going to be at the event. And there's not that, a lot of times you're not going to know who those companies are, who those targets are. But if you're the top hacker on a program and you earn that spot through consistency, community, and criticality, then you're probably going to earn a spot at an event, which oftentimes earns you another spot at the next event.
What about you, Prash, from a program management and working with triage? What would you recommend for anybody that's on the platform? What would you recommend for them to do if they want to get invited at one point to one of these live hacking events?
Yeah, just to add on to what Chris was saying, professionalism is also important. If you're there insulting the triage team, not being polite in your comments and stuff, you're not going to get an invite. We don't want you around, right? Like it's about community. We want to foster a positive environment. So if you're bringing positivity to the community, then of course we're going to want you there. But the biggest way to stir up and get your name noticed is by submitting good bugs. Submit really good bugs to programs like Verizon Media, and show off your skills. That's the best way to get an invite.
What about you, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, not to be a broken record, really, but critical reports submitted consistently with wonderful professionalism, great reports. That's how we're going to be seen. I talked about it in the blog even a year ago. We look for signal and impact over certain hurdles. We have guaranteed invites to hackers that have been in the top 2 of the quarterly leaderboard if they're over 20 of impact and over 5 on their signal. If you earn the most rep and you have that cocktail, you are going to be looked at for an invite. We also have done CTFs multiple times. So any new hacker that crushes it, many people on this stream, even here and now, from OXACB and Gillis, and I'm just going down the Portuguese hacker group now, but Fisher himself as well also came to an event through CTFs. I believe you brought in Zayat, he brought in Irby Sam. There's been so many people. Techno Geek, I believe his first event was through the CTFs. Yeah. So that's a way that we've expanded access for anybody to come in and provide incredible value. The last event was Manuel and P4FG. Literally saw just recently, P4FG got another 10K plus bug. And they did incredibly well at the last event. So it's not just, you need to be good. There's certain companies like the Paranoids that do various events. And so really emphasizing folks your time there. We would love it. They would love it. It's obviously a big scope and a lot of exciting stuff. that's going to be a great thing to look at. In our blog and transparency we provided, try to default to disclosure as much as we could about what we look at and how we kind of structure these events. Jess kind of drives that on the HackerOne side and collaborates with everybody on this call and many others too. So,
Jess, last but not least, what would you recommend for all the new hackers, who want to eventually get involved, especially when they're just getting started?
So I would say that one thing that hasn't been touched on is that we look a little bit heavier on recent activity. So I mean, we look at how you perform holistically on the platform since you started with HackerOne, but we focus more heavily on the last 12 to 6 months. So I encourage just hack more, hack frequently. Be pretty agnostic with I think some of your programs. It's really great to specify and look at one specifically, but as Chris teased, you don't always know who's going to be the target of live events. So just really encouraging recent activity. Super jealous of Chris's Guinness there.
It's not 9 o'clock for some of us.
Very cool. To wrap this up, so it looks like participation and activity is a big part of it, as well as consistency, the quarterly winners for every leaderboard for a HackerOne overall leaderboard, the CTFs, and professionalism play a huge role when it comes down to getting selected. So if you're a new hacker, you want to get involved, those are your best bet. I think the quarterly leaderboard is a harder one to achieve, but it's also the easiest way to get in, especially if you have the stats to back it up while staying professional.
Hey, Ben, can I say something?
Yes.
There was a request that we announced the Hacker of the Week for the event.
That was going to be the last thing I was going to ask. So before we get everybody to go, Bug Bounty HQ, Mark Litchfield, dropped a comment saying, hey, maybe we should announce the Hacker of the Day on the stream. So before we wrap this up, Chris, do you want to shout out the next name?
So our Hacker of the Day was Bull from a bug he submitted at, it was 2:13 my time, a.m. But our Hacker of the Week goes to Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise, aka mayonnaise. If you're watching this,
ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise. This condiment man, Mayonnaise.
He is the Hacker of the Week. Congrats again. Thank you guys all for joining today. Both of you guys are watching from home, and both HackerOne and Verizon Media for making this happen. I appreciate you guys being here. Any last things you guys want to add before we jump off?
These events are awesome, and I can't wait to see more. It's been years of these events. There's just been so much work that goes into them. There's been so much evolution and growth. We have seen so many bugs. I don't even know some of the fantastic bugs that have been submitted to other programs. But Bug Bounty is awesome. The hackers are awesome. These events are awesome. It's a great thing to be a part of. Yeah.
Well, very cool. If there's nothing else, thank you guys again for joining. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks,
Love
everybody.
you guys. Stick around, the homies, all the noobs. Love you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you all. All right, that was it. I do know that there were a little bit of issues with the stream for a little bit in the beginning, mostly because of both my internet provider not being able to help me out, and also how much pressure I had with all the different videos that I had to loop in for the stream to happen. But I appreciate everybody joining. This was very, very fun. I had a blast doing this. I'll be back online tomorrow with Stoke. We're going to do a live Hacker Couch, talk about this week, talk about everything that's happened in the community, bring some people maybe on. Who knows what's going to happen. So I'll be back online tomorrow at 9 a.m. If you want to stick around, please stick around. I'm going to host somebody else, give another streamer a chance to do their thing and also highlight their work. So if you have the time, you want to stick around, please do it. Also, again, thank you all the new followers, all the new subs. Thank you all for watching this. It was really, really fun. But I'm done for the day. I'm going to head out and I'm going to get back to work, and we're gonna raid Superhero and let him do his thing for a little bit. Until tomorrow, I'm done. Thank you all. Please stay safe. Please wash your hands. Stay healthy. Don't go out. And I will talk to you all tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.